Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lens podcast with Roger Rojas. And today we have a special guest. This man right here runs 6 different YouTube channels, over 1 million followers on TikTok. Last time I checked, he's averaging a good amount of viewers on a monthly basis. I would argue probably one of his fastest growing platforms. Commentator, loves playing video games, streaming. He does it all. Everyone, welcome Garry Garrett. How you doing, man?
Hey man, how you doing? So yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head. Life's been a little crazy for me. I've been a content creator now for the last 9 years. Started back in 2011, just at my grandparents' house as a hobby while I was in college. My channel started in 2011, took off in 2013 of September. I graduated with a bachelor's in marketing in 2013 of December. Almost dropped out when my YouTube channel took off because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm making $3,000 a month. What do I need my degree for anymore? But I stuck through it, finished my degree, got a bachelor's in marketing, and now we have 6 YouTube channels, 11-person team, uploading 115 pieces of content on YouTube alone a month, and then 3 TikToks a day, 90 TikToks a month. So,
pumping out content endlessly. You know, you referred to going to college already. If you wouldn't be doing this, what else would you be doing?
So I've always been super into marketing. I mean, like marketing has always been like my life. And one thing I loved about YouTube is like, I am really good at just being me. And marketing myself was like one of the courses I took in marketing. I was like, oh my God, this is so easy. I know how to do this. And if I wasn't doing YouTube, I definitely would be doing something in the content creation field and or consulting, which is hard to consult if you don't have the experience though. So I'm not really sure. I think my dream job right now is what I'm doing right now. I wouldn't trade anything I currently have or anything else in the world. I'm super happy with life and everything I'm doing. And yeah, it's been great.
What inspired you to even get into YouTube? So you
Yes.
did it in the middle of college, and you know, typical story is like how you referred to it. This is definitely a passion of yours.
Mm-hmm.
But how did that? Where did the switch come? Where I'm like, man, this could turn into a job.
Yeah, it was actually pretty fast. So the original roots to my starting was actually Jobless Gamers, and we JG, so Jobless Gamers. It was me and 2 of my best friends. And all we did was just play video games. We were all jobless. We were all gamers. So we're like, you know what? Let's start making videos. We started making videos for fun, just here and there. And then once 2013 rolled around, my 2 friends were like, didn't like it as much anymore. And they just weren't keeping up with what like the quality needed to be. So like they just went on their own path. Still best friends with them to this day. One is pretty much like a hedge fund accountant and one is a nurse. And then you have me, the YouTuber. But in 2013, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, and I was actually one of the first YouTubers to actually get the game. I found a guy that was selling it like 2 weeks early, and when I got the game, I just started making videos so that right when the embargo was released, I was able to just release a ton of videos. And when that happened, it allowed me to just hit the search results of everyone looking for like secrets or tips and tricks or how to level up fast or how to get money. And I just hit the search engine running. And then my channel went from making like $100 a month to making like $3,000 a month. And I was like, this is crazy. Like for me, it was like my hobby just turned into like my job, and it was never intended to be that. I just loved making content. And it's definitely one of those stories where like you definitely can't get into YouTube for the money. I think a lot of people do it wrong. Like if you try to do YouTube to become rich, you will fail. Like it's really hard because you're going against the clock. The idea is like you should really have a passion and love for what you're doing. And then as time goes on, putting all that effort into it can turn into money. I think going into it with the wrong mindset is what hinders people.
You referred to starting this off with a group of friends, and now they're not doing YouTube. One's doing nurse, another one's in hedge fund, as you said.
Yeah.
When you first started doing this, because we're in 2020, where being a YouTuber could be seen as a career. When you first started out, were you scared to tell people like, hey, I'm playing video games,
yeah,
I'm recording myself, and then I'm posting it on the internet? I know in context today, it wasn't cool. Normal, yeah. But I know for a fact back in like 5-10 years ago, it's like, what are you doing?
It was not cool at all. I actually went 2 years until like 2014, 15-ish, like maybe mid 15, before I told my family what I was doing. So imagine I graduated in 2013 and like 2015 rolled around and my grandparents and my family's like, what are you doing with your life? Like, we hear you locked away in your room, like screaming all the time. What is going on? Like, you're just playing video games and your life is just, and I'm like, hey, just so you know, I'm making YouTube videos. And of course, grandparents were like, what the heck is that? That doesn't mean, and by the way, my grandparents are doctors. They're also Cuban doctors. So, you know, they're immigrants and they're like, oh, you can't do this. You have to be a doctor. I'm like, oh my God. So it was a struggle, but nowadays, like I am super cool, which is weird because when I started it was super lame. Like being an influencer back then didn't exist. Like having like merch or doing all those things was like not okay. And nowadays it's like, hey, you're cool if you're in that bubble. Like me being verified on Instagram and Twitter and all these things are like people like aspire to get to that.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, nah, this is just my life. This is just normal.
I love that. I love that. And at the time, if you could look back on it, what is one thing you would do differently?
So that's a good question. So like I sort of live my life right now, just like rolling with the punches. I don't think there's anything that I would have done differently. Like I don't like live in a world of regret. Like whatever decision I had decided to do back then, that's a decision that at the time I thought was best for my future, and which is what led me to where I am today. So I don't think I look back and be like, oh man, I wish I did that differently. I definitely think I could have done things better, but I don't think like I would do anything very different, because if I did anything different, I don't know where that would lead me today. One thing I will say though is I wish I would have started focusing on my personal health sooner. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs fall into this trap where we like put our heads under the sand and we just work. And especially like early on of my YouTube career, I was putting in like 18-hour workdays, easy, like no problem, like eating only peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and just grinding, like putting in the hours to make sure like I find some kind of success. And even now, till this day, I still have like 12 to 14-hour workdays pretty regularly. And it's also really hard for me to step away from my work because I love it so much. But with that said, one thing that I would, I guess, do a little differently is just be more in the present. I was working so hard towards the future back then, I would say like 4 years ago, that I really sort of like disconnected from a reality like around me. I was so like, I got to go, that I wasn't like really aware of like, hey, like time is moving by as I'm like putting in all this work, family and friends, like, you know, I really sort of lost track of all that. And luckily I have a really good friend group and family like that allowed me back in their lives. But like for like I saw like 2 years, I was super like not here. I was pure business, like focused on making myself successful. And I don't know if that's healthy, but it worked for me. And now that I'm like successful, I'm now like focusing more on my health and going out more and doing more things that back, I would say 2 to 4 years ago, I was not doing.
What would be your best piece of advice for someone who's starting out new into the YouTube world? So specifically, let's get like very narrow here on the gaming or kind of what I would say the voiceover world, right? Because I think that's something you do very well on TikTok and other platforms where you're able to be yourself and you're doing something you love. So for someone starting out, what would you tell them?
I think the first thing I would tell someone that's just starting is do not get discouraged. It's super easy to be like, oh man, this isn't for me, or oh, I'm never gonna find success. Like success doesn't just come overnight. Especially on YouTube, it could take upwards of like 2 to 4 years to see any form of success, and that's like very average. Like I think a solid number is like 1 to 4 years for you to really see any good traction on a platform. Especially if you have no backing financially to help you do it, where like you're working a job and like doing YouTube gaming content is your side thing and you're just doing it for fun. It's really easy to get discouraged. But yeah, give it your all. I mean, it's really hard nowadays, especially to enter into the space, especially if your quality isn't up to par. Because if you consider your time as money, why would someone as a viewer want to spend their precious money to watch your content if it is lower than the average quality that the platforms have to offer? I think that's a really good takeaway, is like, hey, make sure the quality you're able to put out, even if you don't have the financial backing to do so, just do your absolute best with what you got and then grow from there, because you are always going to be outdone by every single competitor in the space, just because you are on that path of learning, and it just doesn't come overnight. So just do as much learning as you possibly can and don't get discouraged.
Love that. What is your favorite thing about doing this? Because now I feel like your attention is being taken in so many different ways, and the consumption of how people view your content is evolving. So through it all right now today, what are you finding to be the most passionate?
Yeah. Happiness. So like the fact that my happiness levels are that I am the happiest when I'm creating content, because I know that my content is making others happy. That sounds weird. I don't know, but like I get real enjoyment from having other people tell me how much my content makes their day. And that sounds, even to me, crazy. Like, your dumb gaming videos make people happy, but like people actually like will reach out to me like, hey, I had a really hard day at work or at school, or like, I don't have the best home conditions where like my mom and dad aren't really around, and like you make me feel like I'm a part of something. And I'm like, all I did was just act really dumb in front of a camera and play a video game. And like that little impact to me is so big for somebody else. And that's what I love. That's my number one.
Well, I don't think it's crazy. Just so you know, with me, like, just so people who are listening or watching gets awareness, this is our first time having a conversation, and it was through our mutual, your trainer / my best friend, Lucas. And one of the things that he told me about you is like, man, this guy is just so funny, and he's just the same way what you see on YouTube is what you're going to get on the podcast. Yeah. And that high that you say you're getting, I don't think it's so weird for me being a videographer and a content creator myself. I get the same exact feeling. That feeling when someone watches the video and they see the reaction and they're just like blown away by it, because that's when you're serving people, not yourself. Yeah. You're doing something that's making other people excited, and it's not about you, it's about doing it for them, and then it's like reciprocation that I totally understand.
It's crazy.
I think that's so great. Through your journey, 9 years as a YouTuber, there has to have been a couple ups and downs, right? I know this year the world had its biggest down. Being a YouTuber, you're constantly being criticized. It's not, as you said, another world that you have to undertake. What has been a setback that allowed you to take a bigger perspective on who you were and what you were doing, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah. So I think as a YouTuber and content creator, you always have to reinvent yourself. You always have to strategize to what the future may hold. And back in 2017, I had bought my first house in Texas, and I was stoked. It was a 6-bedroom, amazing home with a movie theater room and everything. I was like, I'm living large, man. And then I realized, like, hey, like, my channel's dying. Like, I had a huge realization, like, I'm only getting, and I say only 3 million views a month, which nowadays is really not that much.
Well, I think I want to cut you off there so people have context. There's a lesson I learned from Magic Johnson. I had a chance to be around him and him speak, and he spoke about a time where as you grow as an individual, your baseline changes. Yeah. So I think you're referring to your baseline of what it was, what you were used to getting, and it has grown. So in context, like, I was like 3 million. That's insane. For you, your baseline is not that.
Even then, like, the baseline, it wasn't even my baseline. It was the industry's baseline that, like, I was struggling. So like I had to realize, like, I had just bought this house, and like my YouTube channel was, on a downward projection. I was like, holy, I need to do something about this. So what I did was I started making new channels, and that was huge for me. Even this year has been huge for me. It's been a big takeaway of like, hey, like, even though the world really feels like it's ending at times, like, it doesn't stop you from doing what you're passionate about. So I launched 2 new channels this year. We're at all-time highs, like, on every front: views, growth, subscribers, everything. It's crazy. And I don't think I would have been here last year if I didn't refocus onto myself. So I think one big investment that I did in the last 12 months that really changed who I was I stopped putting energy into other people and started putting energy into myself. I started reinvesting everything that I wanted to do into me. I'm a big giver of energy. I like to help as many people as I can. I'm always like, hey, how can I help you? What can I do? How can I be of service? And I started realizing like, hey, I was sometimes giving my energy to the people that necessarily didn't need it or weren't deserving of it. And I started eliminating people in my life, in my close circles, that were also draining me of energy. So it's like, or just being unappreciative to energy that they were receiving. So I have an example of someone I recently spoke to, you know, in 20% unemployment rate right now in the United States. And I was helping this person find a job. And I was doing everything in my power, taking FaceTime calls with them, helping them, guiding them, helping them with their resume. And, very little to no appreciation, no thank yous, no nothing. Just like, hey, like, what's going on here? And I realized like, hey, I'm spending hours upon hours a week giving something to someone that just isn't really reciprocating that same time that I'm committing. And I realized like, hey, I want to reinvest that energy that I'm giving out into myself and make me not an option for people to, provide their energy to me. It should be a two-way street, I think. That's one takeaway I would say that really helped me rethink my whole strategy, is just reinvesting into myself.
Leading into that of energy being taken and receiving, how do you deal with negative comments? Because there's always those internet trolls.
Always.
There's always those people that you're doing something at your highest. You said you're still putting in 12, 14-hour days and you feel great about a video. And then there's that one comment that's like, dude, this guy hasn't slept. He's not as funny as this other video.
Always happens.
YouTube channel is not as funny as that one. The comparison game. How do you deal with that as the YouTuber?
So like when I first started, it was really hard because like it really plays a toll on you, and the negative comments are always going to supersede the positive ones. For whatever reason, like you can have 100 positive comments, and that one comment can ruin your day. And that's something that's going to happen throughout, a career in any space. The reality is you got to do your best to not let it bother you. If someone goes so out of their way to leave a negative comment, imagine how unhappy that person is with their life. That's how I look at it. For me, I look at it as like, hey, if this person is that unhappy, I just, I respond to those negative comments that really try to like get under my skin. Like, hey, I wish you the best. Hey, I hope whatever you're going through right now, it gets better. Because people sometimes that are exerting a lot of negative comments or energy most likely have a lot of negative things happening in their life, and that's all they know. So if you surround yourself with negativity, all you're going to be is negative. So I try to exert that positivity that they may need, and it works. Like sometimes they'll be like, hey, look, I'm so sorry. Like I'm just going through a rough week. My wife just left me, or hey, like I'm super stressed. I just got fired from my job. And like, it really helps sometimes more than we know. So that's how I do it.
Perspective. We spoke about it at the beginning. When you were starting out, you were probably doing everything by yourself. Mm-hmm. At what point did you realize that you had to bring people on? You referred to at the beginning, you had 11 employees, X amount of editors, and other people that help you handle the other day-to-day things you have going on.
Yep.
At what point did you say, hey, I can't do this by myself? And what allowed you to say, hey, this is the next thing I need?
Yeah. So back in 2000, I would say 2011 to 2015, is when 2014 is when I still did all my own editing and thumbnails and things of that nature. As you grow on the platform, you are just going to realize like, I can't keep up. Like my editing skills, I am not an editor. I am not a digital artist to create thumbnails. And I realized there are better people out there that can do this role. So I'm going to hire them. I came to that conclusion because I wanted to reinvest the money I was making back into the channel to then make me more money. Because I knew that it would be a positive ROI. In doing so, if I give money to people that are better than me, essentially I should receive a better result than what I'm currently doing, because the quality would be higher, or the editing style will be better than I can currently do, et cetera, et cetera. That was a huge realization for me, because I was so like tight on money. I was like, I don't want to spend my money on this dude that I don't know is going to be committed. And now we're 11 people deep. And it's great. I have a team lead that handles all the editors and all the thumbnail guys. And I have operations manager that pretty much handles all the day-to-day, and then ideation for everything. And then I have about 5-ish editors on both sides. So 5 editors for videos and then 5 editors for thumbnails. So
that's great. That's great. And now, so you've had that growth, and I keep bouncing back and forth because I want to touch on you, and then I also want to give value to the people listening or watching.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best equipment to get today? And this is not an ad, it's not promotion.
Yeah.
You're starting out, maybe you have $200, $500, whatever it is. If I'm a YouTuber and I want to start streaming or whatever, what are the things or the equipment or the devices that you recommend I have, aside from the obvious of the console itself and then the
So I think like it really depends on your budget. So like if you and what you want to accomplish with said budget. So an example, like if you want to be a vlogger, you want to pick up like a little handy camera, maybe like a Sony G7X. That's like the go-to like vlogging camera right now. I think it's like $400. Then like if you want to be like a commentator, like and you have a full setup, this is a simple Rode boom mic. You don't need this. This is like $150 itself. An AT2020 is a great microphone. I've used this since the start of my career. Like since 2011, it's the same mic I've always used. There are better, but like this one has worked for me, and like I'm not changing it. Camera, I have a really expensive camera. Of course, I have like a DSLR camera as my webcam, but simple Logitech cameras can work really well. So yeah, like that. Those are the go-tos. Like anything that works for you, that you can afford, that you can make work for your content, will do just enough. And as you grow, just make sure you upgrade. So like upgrade from like a regular webcam to maybe a DSLR or whatever the case may be.
What is the greatest lesson you've been able to learn as you've evolved as an individual? Because I'm sure the person I'm talking to today, it's not the same person that was around 9 years ago.
Oh, no way.
I did bring up the ups and downs, but I think this is a real question for you to ask yourself. Like, what was that thing that allowed me to continuously continue growing? Because it's very easy to become complacent.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy to say, hey, I'm good with 2 YouTube channels, I'm good with 3, and you're going for 9.
Yeah.
What has allowed you to continue growing and have that kind of mindset of, all right, I want more. And I don't want just more financially, I want more for the people around me. Because now as you grow, you serve more people, you entertain more people. And I think that's so important to touch on.
I think for me, it's just that service I'm providing where I'm able to make people happy. Like the more people I can touch, the happier it makes me. And that sounds so crazy, but I've gotten a lot of perspective over the years, especially in the last, I would say 12 to 16 months. I've grown a lot as a person. Me just even turning 30 this year has been huge. Like it's been like, I am so much more wise than I was last year or 2 years. Like I've just been, growing exponentially as a person, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of it. What's given me great perspective is like time is very valuable. Like it's crazy that, and something I learned this year that many of the viewers may resonate with and might blow some minds here. So strap in. When I lived in Washington, I would see my grandfather once a year. And my grandfather was like the man. He was like a Cuban granddad, so loving, but like was so stern and didn't show his love. But I knew he loved me with every fiber of his existence. But I only saw him once a year because, as you know, when you live across the country, I live in Miami now. That's where he was from. You can't really make those trips very often, especially depending on budget and money. And what makes things even crazier is if you know that your grandfather only has 5 years left to live, let's say he's 85 and at 90, he's most likely going to pass away. That means you're only going to see this person 5 more times. It's not 5 years you have left to see him. You're only going to see him 5 more times. And that perspective recently gave me a huge, like, mind-blowing realization that, like, wow, like, you need to spend more time with the people you care about because in any moment, those people can be gone. That for me was huge. I learned that this year, and that was like, wow. Like, if my grandma only has 5 years left to live, and I only saw her once a year, that means I only saw her 5 more times before she passed away. And I want to see my grandma more than 5 times before she passes. I'm sure you can say the same with any family member you have, and anyone listening. It's like you want to see the people you care about more than just 5 times, more than 10 times. Yeah, that was huge perspective for me. It's like making sure I make time for those that matter to me because I know they'll do that for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. So I recently moved to California. My family, I'm born and raised in Miami. They're all down there. So I have that same type of mentality when I do see them because I know the plane ride isn't 3 hours as it used to be when I was living in New York. It's 6 now. It's double the distance. And That's so important. I'm really glad that you touched on that, because family is something that I'm really big on. And I think anyone listening or watching, even if it's your mom, dad, sibling, that one person you have in your life, I think is so important to have that connection with.
100%.
As you grew as a YouTuber, did your family buy into it? Like
Yeah.
financially, because I've learned from me in my career, when I first started, my family was bugging. They were like, what are
Yeah.
you doing? And then as I started to, produce and sustain myself and travel and do all these other things, then it came to realization, all right, what he's doing is working.
Yeah.
How long did it take for your family to realize that?
My grandparents took the longest.
Which is
Because
valid. So if anyone knows, grandparents 1 being grandparents 2 being Hispanic and 3 being doctors, forget it.
yeah, so like they took the longest. I really had to like really prove to them, not financially, but just prove, like show them, hey, I'm doing well. Um, I'm the first generation of grandchildren. I have 3 cousins to go to college and finish. So like I had that in my pocket. I had a lot of things that like proved them like, hey, what I've achieved is great. And then like, speaking about money with my grandparents really proved them like, hey, like he's doing well. My mom has been supportive to day one. I could be a grocery bag boy for the rest of my life, and my mom will love me the same. So it doesn't matter what I do. My mom and my stepdad will love me through thick and thin. Like they don't care as long as I'm alive and breathing and happy and healthy. That's all they want from me. Friends specifically, all my friends were supportive. All my friends were like, "Hey man, do whatever makes you happy." I think that's super important. Is having a circle of people in your life that are supportive of what you do, but are also real with you to let you know, like, hey, what you're doing may not pan out, but I support what you're doing. And if you need me, I'm here for you. That is what I think has helped me grow as a person, is having the circle of friends and family that have been so supportive, because I could not imagine the pressure of my family constantly telling me you can't do it. And also YouTube comments saying you suck. That would be absolutely the worst. So make sure if you have people like that in your life, try to let them know that you don't appreciate those comments, because they don't help at all.
Yeah, it's never easy. 5 years from now, where do you see yourself?
Oh man. If you would have asked this to me 5 years ago, I would have told you I would have been retired at 30. So I'm happy to say that I'm not retired, but if I wanted to, I could. So that's cool. I've gotten to a point in life where in 5 years, I want to see myself running more of an agency, multimedia conglomerate, sort of. Like we already have 11 employees and I'm running 6 channels. I want to have maybe 12 channels, and I'm no longer the face of any of these channels. I now have talent running these channels for me, or someone that's, paid employee to be in front of a camera doing the things that I'm currently doing. Because as you may or may not know, age is not working in your favor when you do content for YouTube. The older you get, the less attractive you become to these younger audiences that play video games. Nobody wants to watch a 60-year-old man playing video games. That's just the reality. So luckily, I have a pretty young look to myself, so I can probably go for like another 5 to 15 years. I just don't know if I want to do that for the next 5 to 15 years, because especially with the amount of hours I'm currently putting in. If I could do this forever, I would, though. I would.
And if you're not YouTubing or working on your business, what are you doing?
That's not much, man. So especially lately with the whole apocalyptic world we're living in, it's either I'm going to the gym with your best friend Lucas, which is my personal trainer, or going out with friends for like dinners. Dinners and experiences have become a big part of my life. So one thing that I've realized, like a lot of people, like when they reach that YouTube fame, they become very materialistic, where they want to buy the Gucci, they want to buy Supreme, they want to buy all this fancy clothes and the fancy car. And honestly, I have had the same car since I graduated college. I love going on trips and experiencing life, or having nice dinners, or treating a friend out, that had a rough week, to like a lunch. That's what makes me happy. I'm not a big guy about like spending money on fancy cars or whatever. So yeah, that's me.
I love that, man. I love that. You've been awesome. I don't want to take any more of your time. I appreciate you jumping on here, talking, dropping knowledge, people getting to know you. I truthfully love it, because I just got to know another side of you that I wasn't aware of, that I couldn't look up or find on YouTube or find an article about. So I think that's awesome. And dude, if you ever end up in California, you have someone out here, I'm sure. I don't know if you ever, LA or San Diego. Or
I used to go there all the time.
Really?
Yeah, but traveling now isn't super popular. So, but yeah, thank you for the invite, and thank you for having me, and for all the listeners, thank you guys, and wish all you guys the best.
And then thank you. Crush it today, and we'll be in touch, man. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Roger.